Hey guys, and welcome to Gwent, the Witcher card game. My name is Jaggerus, and today I have a starter Northern Realms for you. And this deck doesn't contain very many crafted cards, but if you need to get started with crafting cards, then I suggest you do the fundamentals and deck management tutorials, because this will get you, I think, enough ore to buy at least one keg and another keg. So you should get at least 2 kegs from doing this, as well as getting you started with the game. With that said, this is my starter Northern Realms deck. This is an armor stacking deck, and it uses, for the most part, starter cards. So Gwent has changed with open beta, and now you'll notice that the golden cards are all legendaries and the silver cards are all purples. So they've kind of basically simplified across the board, where if you get a legendary it'll be golden, and if you get a epic it will be a purple. You don't have epic legendaries and legendary silvers anymore, which is kind of a shame, but it is what it is. And basically, because of this, they've also given you 4 legendaries and 6 epics at the start of the game to get you going. So you should have the 4 golds and 6 silvers, which are the maximum numbers of cards you can have in a deck. So this is my starter Northern Realms deck, and it has the 4 starter golden cards. So we have Geralt. Geralt is a 10 strength neutral card, so it can go in any deck. And when you deploy him, he has the Brave ability. Brave triggers if your opponent is winning the current round, calculated after placing the unit and any unit spawns. So basically, if you play him and you're still losing, he'll gain an extra 3 strength. This is the premium version. I got it for free from participating in the open beta, but you can craft it, and you can see if I click on it here, it's all animated and cool. Then we have Triss Merigold, another starter card. She is again neutral, so can go in any deck. Deploy, damage a unit by 5. So she's worth 7, but she can also deal 5 damage to a silver or bronze unit. And you can actually target units on your side of the board or on your opponent's side of the board. So if someone plays a problematic card on your side, you can actually kill it with Triss, which is also quite useful. Then we have Philippa Eilhart. She is a 1 strength Northern Realms card. Deploy, damage an enemy by 5. So this is an enemy, whereas this says unit. So this one you have to specifically target opponents. But this damages an enemy by 5, and that you can target. Then you damage random enemies by 4, 3, 2, and 1. But the same enemy cannot be targeted twice in a row. So there has to be, ideally, at least 2 or more units here, so that she can hit one, then the other, then the other, then the other, and so on and so forth. And our final golden card is Royal Decree. Play a gold card from your deck, shuffle the others back. So this is targeted draw for a gold card. Now, I will say that this deck doesn't have any gold cards that are specifically key to the strategy. You know, you can make decks that revolve around very specific gold cards. So if you're going to swap out Royal Decree, or if you're going to swap out 1 gold card from this deck, I recommend Royal Decree being the first one that you swap out, because there are plenty of good Northern Realms golden cards that you can have. I mean, Dandelion, for example, he boosts up to 3 units in your deck. Geralt Igni is just a fantastic neutral legendary card. Destroy the highest unit on the opposing row if that row totals 20 or more power. Shani, resurrect a unit from your graveyard, add 4 armor to it, which would work really nicely in this armor strategy. But because this is a beginner deck, I'm going to stick with Royal Decree. Then we have our silver cards. So we've got our starter silvers, and I've actually swapped 1 silver card out, which I'll talk to you guys about in a second. But we have Cleaver, toggle a unit's lock. Lock disables a card's ability. So you can either purposefully disable a card's ability, or you can re-enable one that your opponent has locked. Then we have Sile de Tarnseville. She plays a bronze special card from your hand, then draws a card including gold. So you need to have a bronze special card in your hand. Unfortunately, in this deck, we've got 3, so you should be able to play her with a special card. Then we have Scorch, destroy the highest unit. And warning to new players, if your unit is the highest unit, this card will destroy your unit. So if you have an 8 and they have a 7, and you're like, I'll Scorch their 7. Nope, that won't happen. It'll burn up your 8 unit instead. So this is something to be aware of, because it's a rite of passage in Gwent to Scorch your own unit. Then we have Commander's Horn. Special, boost 5 adjacent units by 4. So these effects, they will only trigger on silver or bronze cards. So unless otherwise stated, a card effect will not affect gold cards, basically. So you can see all of these effects. None of these effects are going to work on gold cards. Then we have Decoy. Decoy is a fantastic card. Again, fits in a lot of decks. Return an ally to your hand, strengthen it by 3, and play it again. So this allows you to replay silvers, such as these 2, or bronzes, such as any of these bronzes we have in this deck. Now, the last silver card is actually one that I recommend early on potentially crafting to get you going. If you're going to craft a legendary card, this one is a neutral, so it fits in every deck. But this is Merigold's Hailstorm. Damage all units on a row by half their power, ignoring armor. So so basically if they have a row with lots of units on it, you can basically half all of them. So that potentially is going to deal a decent amount of damage. And I actually swapped out Doo-Doo for this card. Doo-Doo, deploy, choose an enemy and copy its power. Doo-Doo, all it really does is bring you, up to the same number of points as an enemy unit. If they have one very buffed unit, it can be good. But personally, I don't feel like it's the most useful silver card. So that's why I'm using Merigold's Hailstorm here, just to give you an example of something that you can tech into. Now, in terms of our bronze cards, we have Redanian Elites, and you start with 2 of these, so I've popped a third one in there. So I'd recommend getting a third one if you can. This has 3 armor. Whenever this unit's armor reaches 0, boosts self by 5. So it starts with armor, but if the armor gets removed, it gets stronger. And you actually have the Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry, deploy, remove armor from 2 units, and boost self by the amount of armor removed. So you can take the armor off one of these, for example, give this guy some strength, and then also give this guy some strength. So that's the kind of armor synergy coming into play. Then we have 2 Redanian Knight Elects. This has got 2 armor. Turn starts. If this unit is armored, boost adjacent units by 1. So as long as this unit has armor, the units on its left and right are going to get buffed by 1. We have the Tridem Infantrymen. We just got one of these. He is an 8 strength, 3 armor unit. This is another starter card. You start with 2 of these. So if you don't happen to have a third Redanian Elite, you can always put in another Infantryman. But I find the Elites are a little bit better. And we have 3 Reaver Scouts. Reaver Scouts, again, I've teched in another Reaver Scout into this deck. You start with 2. These are really useful. Basically, you can use these to summon a copy of a different bronze ally. So if you have one of these units on the board, you can then play a Reaver Scout, and that will pull another one from your deck. So you can start to kind of get synergies going. And also it thins your deck, which means you should draw better going into the subsequent rounds. Then we have our special bronze cards. And this is one that I do recommend crafting. Ideally having 2 of them. But 1 in this situation is working because we're running Sealay. And for some reason, the Immune Boost Potion isn't marked as a special card. So literally every other bronze unit in here is marked as special. But at the moment, this card isn't. For example, the Thunderbolt Potion, even though it's a potion, is special. And the Solo Potion is special. Epidemic's special. So all of these cards in here are special. But for some reason, Immune Boost isn't marked as special. Which means you can't play it with Sealay. If this changes, I would recommend putting a second Immune Boost into this deck, because it's a really good card with this deck, because it boosts 3 adjacent units by 3 and gives them 3 armor, so you have the armor synergy there. But with the current state of this card not being special, something I hope will change, I would recommend only running 1. But it is worth crafting and teching into this deck. Then we have Lacerate. This is the premium Lacerate. You can see it's animated. Damage all units on a row by 3. And this is basically just you typically get, 6 to 9 damage plus out of this, so it's a decent amount of damage onto the row, and, you can basically use Merigold's Hailstorm, half the strength of the row, and then lacerate it as well to deal a lot of damage. And then, in case of weather strategies, we have our first light. Spawn Clear Skies or Rally, and we have 2 of these, 1 premium and 1 not. Clear Skies will trigger all weather effects on your side and then remove them, but if your opponent isn't playing weather, you can just play Rally, and this will play a random bronze unit from your deck instead. So, it's a good counter for weather strategies, and if there's no weather, you can use it to play a bronze card, so it's generally a good card. That's the deck. I'm going to jump into a game now, and I'll showcase this deck in action for you, and if you like this deck, or you find this deck video and this beginner guide helpful, please hit that thumbs up button, guys.
Ested esa crisa.
Crush those vermin!
Okay, so we're up against Eridan, which often means weather, though it can mean consume. So if we have first lights in hand, we want to keep them here. Unfortunately for us, we haven't found any. We have a Redanian Elite, we have some Dunbanner Cavalry, and we have Reaver Scouts. In this situation, we only need 1 Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry, so we'll mulligan 1 there. We got Royal Decree, which is nice. We have Immune Boost, Lacerate, Decoy, Merigold's Hailstorm, and Scorch. So a lot of special cards here, which you need to be a little bit careful with, because honestly, you don't want too many special cards. Otherwise, you run out of units, and that can make your life more kind of difficult. So we're going to mulligan the Lacerate, as we have Merigold's Hailstorm. We got Sealay de Tarnsville, but we don't actually have a special card, a bronze special card here, because, like I said, Immune Boost isn't special for some reason. So I'm going to mulligan the Immune Boost here, and try and find a special card. Instead, we found Geralt. This means that Royal Decree will draw our Triss, because obviously we can see our other 3 golden cards here. Our opponent is going first, so we're just going to kind of let him do that. And he's playing Eridan, whose leader ability, when you play him, he spawns a bronze Wild Hunt unit, so he can replay one of these. So these round end Brave, if basically if at the end of the round this guy's not losing, or this guy is losing, sorry, he will gain resilience on this unit and keep it. We're going to open with our leader ability, and that is Foltest. Full test, he boosts all units in your hand and deck by 1. So you really want to play him nice and early, because then you get that boost on all of your units, which just makes everything stronger. And obviously the sooner you play him, you know, the more units are going to get boosted. So he's going to be picking a Wild Hunt unit to summon, and you can see there he's trying to make this Wild Hunt trio. And actually this is fine for us, because if he does make all 3 of those, what we can do here is we can Scorch them. So we want to play something that has less than 6 strength here. The thing is, the Cavalry and the Reaver Hunter aren't so great to play. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop out Geralt. Geralt will get the Brave ability, because we'll be on 14 points when we play this, which means that we're behind, so then the Brave triggers, and you can see that there, which is nice and useful. And our opponent has chosen to spawn, so they're looking to tie, basically. I'm not entirely sure what Brave does if it's a tie. I'm figuring it doesn't trigger. But in this situation, to be honest, I think we're better off, you know, winning. So what I'm going to do is just Scorch his 2 6s. We'll remove those, we'll win the round, and we'll pass. This does put us on 1 card fewer than him, but, you know, giving us a round, that's okay. You wouldn't want to be maybe 2 cards fewer, because that starts to make life a bit more difficult in the future rounds, but taking, you know, 1 card disadvantage to win a round, I think is pretty worthwhile. So we got a first light, so if he plays Weather, we now have an option to remove it. We have Decoy, Merry Storm, and so on. We have a Redanian Knight Elect. I actually think this is a pretty happy hand, so we're going to finish our redrawing here. I don't want to mulligan in case I then draw Triss, because that's going to be a little bit awkward with our Royal Decree, because now our Royal Decree would be useless, though we could mulligan Triss in the subsequent round. So we're going to open with our Redanian Elite here. This is the 3 armor. Whenever this unit reaches 0 armor, boost it, basically. And then what we can do is we can summon a second one with a Reaver Scout, and then we can put the Redanian Knight Elect in between them, which will then kind of keep giving them armor, effectively, which is quite useful. So there's the Frost that I said we should be a little bit cautious about. This is going to remove 1 strength from this row each time, which is kind of annoying. As it is, though, I think this unit can be played on any row, so what we can actually do, which is quite clever here, is if we play our Reaver Scout
I told you so, you idiot.
onto the Redanian Elite, we can move this one to this row, and then once we've done that, we can actually decoy this Redanian Elite and move it back a row as well, so we can use our decoy to safely move our Redanian Elite. And the alternative strategy you'll see here, now that he's lost his armor and he got boosted, is we could decoy our Reaver Scout, replay it,
I told you so, you idiot.
and then get another Redanian Elite and pop him there.
Redania!
And you'll notice that the Nithril is increasing the biting frost damage by 2. I'm just being a little bit careful with my first light. I don't want to use it too early in case my opponent plays more weather. So what I would rather do is just have the Redanian Elite and, you know, have him weather the frost, basically. And you can see he's kind of taking him out there. But that's okay, because what we're going to do now is we are going to pop down our Redanian Knight Elect in between, and he's going to start armoring up these 2 cards here, which is, you know, a nice option for us. And actually, when we want to play our first light, we'll play our Sile de Tansville, so she then will play the first light. And you can see he's zapped my Redanian Knight Elect, so he no longer has armor, which means that he's no longer going to be buffing the units on either side of him, which is annoying, but not the end of the world. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pop out our Cavalry in the back row. We'll take the armor off this Elite. We'll take the armor off this Elite, and they'll both get buffed. The risk in this situation is they both have 11 strength, which means they are a good target for Scorch. So if our opponent plays Scorch, you know, they are likely to play it. There's the second Frost, which we don't really want to deal with. So this is where we're going to then bring out our good friend Sile. And then we're going to use her to play First Light into a Clear Skies, which removes the weather. And we've drawn Commander's Horn, which is actually really nice in this situation because we have a nicely stacked row. So this is pretty good for us, basically. What we can do now that he has a lot of units out is we can look to play Philippa. So we'll play out Philippa, and she'll let you target a specific unit. We are going to take out Nithril because he actually increases the damage of their Frost. And once we do that, it then randomly hits a lot of units, and you can kind of see what happened there. Now, what we could have done as well is played Merigold's Hailstorm, but we didn't do that. This is a very weird deck by our opponent. They're playing, you know, consume strategies into a deck that's also running damage. What I think we'll do for this situation is we're going to pop our Commander's Horn and boost these units. And at this stage, we can now, you know, feel quite comfortable in passing. We've got a decent lead. What we've got in our hand isn't that useful, but saying that, it depends what our opponent plays. The problem is that we don't want to go into the last round at a significant card disadvantage, which we could potentially do here. With that said, we are 12 points up, and he has 3 cards and we have 2, so perhaps it's not worth the pass. Perhaps instead we'll pop out our Royal Decree, play our Triss.
I'll do what I can.
And we're going to kill his Arrakis. Because by killing the Arrakis... Oh, I had armor. My bad. We can't quite kill it. But by killing the Arrakis, we'd stop the consume effects triggering. And we don't want to zap something on the front row in case we choose to play Merigold's Hailstorm, because that's going to get us a decent amount of points. As it is, it turns out that our opponent, you know, is on 32. We're on 46. So we're already 14 points ahead. This is going to give us, I think, 6 points. There it goes. It gave us, yeah, 6 points. So we're 20 points ahead now, and he has 2 cards. So if he can catch us with the 2 cards, you know, good for him.
I must.
Oh, it's very close. 7 points. So he's going to have to play this card. What's it going to be?
Enough gob flopping.
Cleaver. Oh, we win by 1. And this is a situation where you're just kind of reading your opponent a little bit. So I could have passed earlier, but I made the read that I thought it was going to be very tough for my opponent to catch me up. And it turns out that was the case. So you can see there, we kind of read of our opponent and chose to keep going. And that is a very important skill in Gwent. We chose not to, you know, pass on the first round, and we chose to kind of keep going with this round. And the more you play, the better you'll get at kind of reading the situation. And then, you know, if he had happened to catch me up, it would have come down to a, you know, a lucky top deck, and whether your opponent top decked better than you. And that's maybe a kind of awkward situation to be in. But you can kind of see the idea with this full test deck and kind of how it goes about. In terms of expanding on this deck, if we look at our collection, there are, you know, a lot of different silvers you could start to kind of swap in different gold cards. Shani, for example, I talked about when I was showcasing you guys the deck, is a really nice starter card in armor because it resurrects a card and it gives you armor. And the thing with stuff like the Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry, for example, they do better when you have some armor units out, such as your Redanian Elites or your infantrymen. If you feel like you're drawing your Reaver Scouts but not having a target for them very often, you can always, you know, drop this down to 2 Reaver Scouts. And similarly, if Immune Boost becomes a special card, then Seeley becomes much more valuable because obviously the problem with her is if you don't have a special card to play, you don't get that draw, and that draw did give us the Commander's Horn. Saying that, there are other ways you can draw cards. For example, in Northern Realms, if we go across here, we have the 11 strength spying unit, Thaler. Thaler you play on your opponent's side, so this is the kind of card you would play when you intend to lose a round. You can play this out, and you get to draw 2 cards and keep 1. So you get a choice, and this, as you see, it says including gold, so you can draw gold cards as well. So this is a card you would play on a round that you didn't intend to win. Alternatively, you could play this and potentially Scorch it, but it's a card that you can play on a round that you don't intend to win. Another great card in Northern Realms that fits into any Northern Realms card is Odrin. At the start of the turn, he'll move to a random row and boost units on that row by 1. So these are the kind of cards you could think to start switching in for, say, stuff like, you know, Cleaver or Seeley, for example. If you like them, or even you could switch out Merigold's Hailstorm if you feel like you're not getting enough value out of it. Similarly, if you feel like you've got too much row removal and not enough targeted removal, you can swap Lacerate out for something like Alza's Thunder. That works quite nicely. Igni works in more or less any deck. Dandelion works in more or less any Northern Realms deck. Shani, just fantastic in this armor strategy. So these are the kind of cards you can start switching in. And I definitely think switch out Royal Decree first, and then probably Triss, and then Geralt or Philippa, depending on, like I say, it depends on how you find the cards performing. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments below and just ask away, whatever, beginner questions. No question is too dumb. Thanks for watching. This has been the Northern Realms beginner deck, and I will have obviously beginner decks for the next 4 factions coming out in the next few days, so keep an eye out for that. Have a fantastic day, and hopefully I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!